This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
January 14, 2011, in this apparently soulless warehouse outside the city of Bologna, the premiere of a historical event is taking place. For the first time, an audience of journalists and scientists can watch a test of the energy catalyzer, a small device that defies the laws of physics and produces energy, a lot of energy. One man only knows the secrets of this mysterious device. His name is Andrea Rossi. Everything starts with cold fusion, Rossi told us, when in March 1989 Martin Fleischmann and Stanley Pons announced that they were able to create the sun in a glass. I was very excited. I tried to repeat the experiment, but without success. In the end, Rossi gives up on Fleischmann and Pons' palladium and deuterium, and he decided to try with nickel and hydrogen. Two Italian physicists, Francesco Piantelli and Sergio Focardi, had the same idea.
Ma è stato...
Well, it was a very interesting meeting, because it came at a time in which I had given up any research activity. It was an accidental meeting in the street. Focardi was holding a newspaper in his hands and said, "Have just met a crazy man. He wants to produce energy." Then we found out that he wasn't crazy at all. In fact, energy was produced. I approached him to ask him to refute my hypothesis, telling him I'll pay the counseling in order for him to explain to me why this cannot work, so that I can set my mind at rest and stop it. It seemed that Rossi at the time had lost the hope to make it work. But after a conversation and an analysis of the documents, he urged me to go on, and that's what we did. For 2 years, Sergio Focardi and Andrea Rossi met regularly in a makeshift laboratory in Bondeno, close to Ferrara. Their joint effort seems to bear fruits. Focardi kept on giving us results which were more and more thrilling, with energy multiplier factors which were increasingly higher. We were all rather curious. He brought new ideas, those that allowed to get energy in a very concrete way. How did you figure out the idea of these secret additives? Well, it was 10% of intuition and 90% of perspiration. I mean, I tried thousands of reactors and thousands of different combinations until I found the one that worked. The energy catalyzer is ready for its first public appearance. The experimental device is loaded with 1 gram of nickel powder and with a small quantity of high-pressure hydrogen. Andrea Rossi starts the machine. Electric power runs through a coil that heats the reactor. In a few minutes, temperature rises at 100 degrees. turning the water that's around the system into steam. Giuseppe Levi, physicist from the University of Bologna, certifies that within 1 hour, the energy catalyzer produced 10 kilowatts of power, a 30-fold increase compared to the energy used. Laws of physics and chemistry cannot explain how the production of such a big amount of energy is possible. We conducted our measurements, we repeated them, we checked that there were no hidden wires and batteries. Now, all the experimental evidence points out that the device is working. The fuel that the device is using is made of nickel and hydrogen. In 24 hours, the device uses 1 gram of hydrogen, and in 180 days uses about 50 grams of nickel. From an economical point of view, how much does it cost? Well, I don't know how much 1 gram of hydrogen costs, maybe 1 cent of euro, and 50 grams of nickel cost 50 cents. I saw it working in December and January. Then we did a technical test at the beginning of February and another one in March. I know that there will be other tests too, so I would say that if these are the premises, it will work. Bologna University will study the phenomenon to find a viable scientific explanation. Andrea Rossi himself will finance the research with 500,000 euros per year. Sergio Focardi, on his hand, has a theory already. Most physicists do not believe in our results. Maybe they think that we're not able to make experiments, but we are sure we can do it. Did you understand what type of process is behind the phenomenon? Yes, I did. The first thing I realized, given the energy that was developed, was that the process had to be nuclear and not chemical. What does it happen? Do nickel and hydrogen fuse together? That's right. The hydrogen nucleus, that is the proton, penetrates nickel nucleus, and when the proton enters the nickel nucleus, it becomes copper and releases energy. But we still do not know how that happens. What kind of innovation did Andrea Rossi introduce to obtain these results? We added a secret additive, whose formula is confidential, to the system formed by hydrogen and nickel. I do not know this additive. I have never asked anything about it, and I do not want to know anything about it, but I know that it facilitates the process. Without the additive, the process will be less. What happens exactly inside the reactor of the energy catalyzer is not clear yet, but Mr. Rossi does not intend to waste any time. He wants to market his invention, a low-cost energy source ready to be used. It is a unit that can be connected with other units, with 300 units connected to each other. We obtain a super unit of about 1 megawatt. We are starting a mass production, and from November the product will be on the market. How much will it cost? The devices cost about $2,000, which is 1,200, 1,300 euros for each kilowatt installed, whereas energy costs less than 1 cent per kilowatt hour. Andrea Rossi's patent application reads 2008. However, in 1995, Professor Piantelli from the Siena University had patented something very similar. His device was the result of years spent in research carried out together with Sergio Focardi. Previous patents take into consideration the possibility of rejection. Rossi's idea is clearly described in the Focardi-Piantelli patent that dates back to 1998. The point is that since something similar already exists, then the patent will not be granted. This is what I think and what European examiners will think. The patent would allow us to publish those documents that are now classified because of the industrial secret. We would be protected. If the patent is not granted, we keep the industrial secret. But our research will not stop for sure.
Certamente non fermeremo I nostri programmi.
Se il brevetto verrà concesso,
if the patent is granted, Mr. Rossi can claim his intellectual and industrial property rights and might also ask for royalties. He would also be allowed to bestow exploitation contracts. If, on the contrary, the patent is not granted, the subject will be public and people can make whatever they want with it. How much money have you invested in the project? I cannot answer the question, unfortunately. All I can say is that we have invested all our money on this project. So far, I have been involved personally, that's for sure. But who's this man that promises to change the world? Andrea Rossi, 60, from Milan, has a degree in philosophy. He inherited his passion for engineering from his father, who has a machine shop. But the present, and maybe the future, is energy catalyzer. March 29, 2011, two authoritative Swedish physicists flew to Bologna from Stockholm. The president of the Royal Swedish Academy of Science, Sven Kullander, professor of theoretical physics and president of the Swedish Skeptics Society, Hanno Essen. Rossi prepared a smaller device, more stable one. It is a test which is fundamental to evaluate the reliability of the system. For almost 6 hours, Energy Catalyzer produced energy in front of the two Swedish physicists. Were you impressed by the test conducted in Bologna?
Yes, because you produce something, you produce power that cannot be explained, according to my opinion, by chemical processes.
We have here some source of energy that seems to be radically new and very stable and reliable also, as opposed to many other cold fusion experiments. They have been very vague and difficult to reproduce.
Do you think that the reaction taking place in the reactor is a nuclear one?
Yes, that's what I believe. I mean, I have been convinced that we have an energy production which is hard to explain by other means.
Can you exclude the use of tricks in the device?
Not entirely. I don't suspect any trickery. None of us have found any signs of trickery, even if I admit that we have never checked everything.
The Swedish scientists also couldn't see the core of Rossi's device. Nobody, including Professor Focardi, knows the additive secrets introduced by Rossi to turn a reaction which produced few watts into a high-energy reaction. Rossi says he uses a powder of enriched nickel in which probably there are more isotopes with greater atomic numbers close to that of copper. Sven Kullander analyzed a sample of the nickel powder that, according to Rossi, was used for 2 months and a half inside the energy catalyzer. He found out that 10% was made of copper. How do you explain the presence of copper in the ash?
Well, it could, if it had not been put in, or if it could have been, well, I don't know, it could, if it's some surrounding copper and it had been lost, it would be too much probably to be that. Otherwise, it should be a nuclear process that the nickel captures a proton and it then forms copper. For
Rossi and other people, maybe the fact that it works is the most important, of course. But to understand the science, because it's very mysterious at this point. I don't understand it, and I don't know anyone who does really.
Do you think Andrea Rossi understands what happens in the reactor?
No, I don't think he understands it more than many others. But when he tries to explain to us how he understands it, I don't. It doesn't make sense to me. He talks about pressure and so on. It's interesting, but very heuristic and a bit intuitive. I think he is mainly a practical guy.
If that is a real nuclear fusion, Rossi and Focardi would deserve to win the Nobel Prize, don't you think so?
Yeah, that's this has of course to be evaluated and seen how. But I mean, if this is so fantastic, so if I think I could agree to that. It's such a fantastic discovery. If it's true, it's hard for me to believe it because it's against all my physics knowledge so far.
Waiting for an academic recognition, Andrea Rossi is working on the commercial launch of Energy Catalyzer, which should be not far off. The surprise is that Athens will be the capital of the new energy world order. Why is Greece so advanced in the field?
We're still good. Although the financial problems of Greece, we're still good. We believe we know international markets. Okay, we have experience. And we are the first ones who believe to Rossi and his product.
The October event will refer to a 1 megawatt plant which will be inaugurated at our facilities in Xanthi to furnish our energy needs. However, we will also use it as a presentation or as a showcase for future potentially interested parties.
Is Energy Catalyzer ready for the market?
We have the final product in our hands. Not the experimental one. Exactly the one that we are going to produce. It works. It works excellent.
Actually, the device, what we are going to sell or, let's say, provide, there's a slight distinction between selling and providing in our terms, is going to be a 10 kilowatt device producing solely heat.
How much will it consume in terms of fuel and money?
Actually, the end user, again speaking about households, in the first place will have no other, let's say, charges or costs except for the state leasing fee, because we will provide all the ingredients within this device.
How many devices will you rent out?
Well, as many as we can produce. So we can, as a rule of thumb, we assume a final, at full capacity, of course, output a factory of around 300,000 units per year.
A factory already in production, tools still on paper. L.E.N. Green Technologies seems to have real intentions. In few months, it wants to put on the market hundreds of thousands of energy catalyzers. But who's behind the company?
L.E.N. is funded by a group of non-governmental entities. It's not just private investors, but there are entities also in industry, but they are non-governmental and they're international.
Well, there is a group of investors, I have to tell you about 10 names, which I am not allowed to say yet. They come from different parts of the world, representative interests from different types of, different parts of the world, actually. But
how much money will be invested in the project?
Well, to cover Greece and Balkans, we estimated about 200 million. We believe that Greece will be the pathfinder of another government for other countries. I believe it 100%, and our investors believe it 100%. And of course, if you see the messages we are getting, all over the world they believe it 100%. There is several countries, important countries, who are already requesting to work and buy the product for us.
A great revolution, if it really works. There are still too many secrets, industrial and commercial ones, which prevent full evaluation of the scope of Andrea Rossi's invention. Can we believe him?
A hardworking, intelligent, creative person, knowledgeable, careful. He's an impressive person.
As far as I know him, was a very nice man. Was very charming. I mean, he could sell his products very well. He was definitely very intelligent, a genius. I would say that Andrea Rossi is a picturesque character.
Mr. Rossi is the type for me of the professor. He's very solid on what he's saying, and at the end of the day he proved not only one time, several times, what he is saying is right.
You know, he invented a system to make money which is detrimental for the community. He is a man that suffered a lot in Italy, but despite that, he is bringing back his discovery to Italy.